It's no secret that Mulan and Joan of Arc have amazing area of effect buffs that completely change open field combat in Rise of Kingdoms. But have you ever wondered which buff is better? Well, in this video, we're going to do a battle of the buffs to figure out which of these commanders has the better buff, whether it's Mulan's full 3 seconds of 20% to all stats for all unit types, and there's also 30% march speed there, or is it going to be Joan of Arc giving 200, that's right, 200 rage over 4 seconds, as well as 30% of stats? Stick around to find out which of these commanders is the punchiest and best that you can bring to support your allies in Rise of Kingdoms and start winning more open field combat today. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today we are breaking down a battle of the buffs. Which of these commanders, Joan of Arc or Mulan, is the better commander to bring if you can't bring both? Or, like, gosh, how much better is it to have the two of them? And how much does the Mulan march speed actually matter? In this video, we're going to give you answers to all of it. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We are a sponsored content creator, and from the very moment Mulan came into the game, we have been speculating just how good she is and how amazing her buffs are. Well, my Alliance member Oxic has her fully expertised, so we took him to the test in Ark of Osiris practice matches in order to figure out which commander gives the better buff. To do that, we're using a march that removes literally all randomness from the fight entirely. So we're going to have Mulan and Joan of Arc doing their buffs nearby, and they're going to be buffing City Keepers, who have 0 randomness and 0 talents. The results are 100% reproducible every single time you do the fight, and that is going to be really fun to watch. So let's jump right into these battle reports, and if there's any specific thing you want to see, we have timestamps in the description so you can jump to whichever test you want. Now, before I show you the first result, it is worth mentioning that yes, we normalized for just about everything. The city skin we're using is the same, the token buff we're using is the same, and so on. Now, in this first report, I'm going to have the Joan of Arc buff, and he is going to have the Mulan buff. They are going to be buffing our City Keepers. The City Keepers are going to be using infantry. Now, we wanted to use a unit that didn't have attack as the stat that's being boosted because technically health is the better stat in Rise of Kingdoms, and we wanted to see Joan of Arc at her absolute peak performance, which is buffing an infantry unit. So here is the result of the first battle, and Oxic is the winner, and not by a small amount. In fact, it's important to mention that he does have the infantry special unit, so we thought, you know what, we really need to run this test again. Let's try this test where neither side has the special unit. So we've got our Joan of Arc for me, Mulan for him, and we run the City Keepers. He wins again. This time we're using archers in both tests, or rather both marches. So we've got the exact same unit, same 100% across the board here. And yeah, the Mulan buff is outperforming, and not by a small amount. And the thing that's really crazy, and I almost thought, like, gosh, do I need to rerun all these tests? But I don't think we do, because the result is still the same in the big picture here, which is that he had no talents on his Mulan, whereas I had battle talents on my Joan of Arc. Why is that relevant? Because my Joan of Arc is going to fire off her skills way more frequently than his Mulan is going to fire off his skills. So he's even getting the Mulan buff less than he should, and he's still absolutely dominating this combat. So that to me says that Mulan is extremely good. But hey, if Mulan is good, Mulan and Joan of Arc together have to be better, right? So in the next test that we run, he is going to use a Joan of Arc and Mulan. I am going to use just the Joan of Arc. So they're going to be battling nearby, buffing the marches, and here is the result of that report. Now, what I found surprising here was that I was really expecting these numbers to be totally jacked up even more in his favor, but there's actually very little variation above and beyond what we saw from just getting the Mulan buff. So I start to question how these buffs actually stack, and if there's something going on there with, like, maybe because Joan of Arc's already applied an attack buff, something about Mulan's buffs maybe is being overridden. I'm not entirely sure, but what I know is that the performance gain from having both buffs was actually only very incremental in nature. Now again, because we're using City Keepers here, these results would be 100% reproducible. There is, however, a little bit of weirdness attacking into a Mulan, which is that she sometimes will reduce the rage of the target that's hitting her. So maybe it isn't 100% reproducible because the frequency of those buffs is going to change a little bit, but all the other randomness is out of the picture, and it still gives us a really clear result. The Mulan buff is amazing. Add a Joan buff on top of it, and it's a little bit better, but not like world-changingly better. So the next thing we wanted to see was to just play around with some real commanders. We used Edward of Woodstock and El Cid to duke it out. I get the Joan buff, he gets the Mulan buff. And we ran that, and boom, he did win the battle. Now look, there's some randomness here with talents, but I wanted to just show this anyways because I thought it was interesting. And we ran a couple more of these. I'll show them as well. In the next test we ran, I wanted to see the real-world applicability of the combination of the Joan of Arc and Mulan to see just how much better it is. Because look, it's not like the active skill on City Keeper is like this life-changing skill, but oh man, on Edward and El Cid, it's pretty nasty. So we ran that combo, and yeah, he definitely wins by more now. He wins by incrementally more. And this makes me feel like the buff is good. Keep in mind, we've got 210,000 each in these marches, same level of VIP for both of us here. It's good. It wasn't like a world-changing difference, but it was still an incremental improvement. And when you think about there being 20, 30 marches nearby in the Temple of Osiris area, yeah, this is a pretty meaningful boost to all your nearby allies. But for small ball combat, it seems like a nice boost, but not a totally gangbuster boost. But by small ball, I mean like 2 or 3 marches here or there. You really need to start to have big groups before the buff becomes overbearing, because the comparison point here, right, is not like, oh, do I want a Joan of Arc buff or do I want a Mulan buff? Actually, the comparison point is, would I have been better off with an Isong or a Mulan? See what I mean? Am I better off doing AoE damage to a whole bunch of folks? Or am I better off bringing a march that's going to buff everybody, as an example? Now, look, if you're free to play or a low spender and you're figuring out whether or not these marches are worth bringing, I'm going to go ahead and say that, like, yeah, the conclusion of this is that a 5511 Mulan is going to be really good. And if you're not bringing all expertise legendaries, which most people aren't, then your choice isn't between, do I bring the Mulan or do I bring the expertise legendary? But for players that are in top tier Ark of Osiris League right now, PS, check out my channel on Sundays for live streams of Ark of Osiris coverage. And also, we will be covering Ark of Osiris League on the official Rise of Kingdoms channel. Check that out too. But look, if you're at high-end Ark of Osiris play, you're going to probably want both of those buffs. And I wonder how good they are above and beyond that Isong. That's what we're trying to figure out, right? The expertise legendary versus like, hey, do I just bring the buffer? And it does seem like some amount of buffing is really important, but also just bringing a unit that's stronger is pretty good too. So we wanted to understand, hey, look, if I'm sold on this idea that Mulan is really good to bring, just how good is that march speed boost that Mulan is giving? Because you see, we haven't talked or really accounted for at all the additional 30% of march speed that you're going to get from Mulan for 3 seconds. Because that is a lot of march speed to gain for 3 seconds. Now, we ran a couple tests with the Ark of Osiris. Never mind the fact that if you're just battling in the field, going faster is really a big deal, whether you are chasing down the Ark carrier, running away from combat, or going to the next objective. If there's a Mulan buffing you nearby, you do go faster, but how much faster? If you want to run the Ark of Osiris from the temple uninterrupted to an altar nearby or a shrine of war, it is going to take you about 2 minutes and 26 seconds if you use a mobility build on a double C, and you use a secondary commander that gives 15% extra march speed, so like Attila or Khan. And I get that that's not what most Ark carriers are using, but like if we just stack a bunch of march speed, that's how fast it is. Now, you might be able to go a little bit faster if you've got windswept set and all this other stuff going on, but for this test, we didn't have that. So you've got that 2 minutes and 27 seconds, and that's what we knew it would be with no buff from Mulan. With the buff from Mulan, however, you shave off a cool 20 seconds from the total time. And okay, you're not going to have the buff the whole time. So what you'll be watching on the screen now is that sometimes she's going a little bit faster and sometimes it slows back down and that timer gets longer. But the point is that it's still going faster by about 1/7 of the time. Like you shave 1/7 of the time off of your trip with that Ark of Osiris if you had buffs the whole time. And like, yeah, it is actually conceivable you could get that because people start to run toward the Ark carrier. So you have your Mulan go chase the people that are chasing the Ark carrier. See what I'm getting at? And that is going to be giving, hopefully, the Ark carrier some buffs. But I mean, gosh, how many Ark of Osiris matches have we cast where, you know, victory was seconds away for one side or another? Yeah, I think that Mulan buff is really game-changing. And if you're not bringing it to the Temple of Osiris area, I feel like this testing shows us that you could be doing something better to win that crucial Ark of Osiris matchup. So does this mean that I think a free-to-play player should run in and expertise their Mulan? I mean, probably not. I still don't think that's the right use of your precious legendary commander sculptures for a commander that you can get from gold keys. But do I think that, yeah, a 5/5/1/1 Mulan is going to be really good to have at the temple or any big brawl? Yes. Do I think that a Joan of Arc will be also complementary? Yes. I still actually think it'll be a little bit complementary and is certainly worth bringing, if for no other reason than like, you know what? If you bring a Joan of Arc and someone else brings a Mulan, the buffs probably aren't going to be overlapping all the time anyways, and so you'll get solid value even if they don't stack perfectly together. Let me know if you enjoyed this video or there's more that you want to see us test with an expertise Mulan. Huge thanks again to Oxic, and leave those comments down below. If there are enough likes on this video, we will consider going in and doing more testing with Mulan, following along with your requests in the comments. So be sure to throw that like on this video, leave a comment down below with what you'd like to see tested next, and subscribe to the channel for daily Rise of Kingdoms value and updates. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom. And oh yeah, I mean, if you're looking for yet another video to go and check out, I'll have a card up in the top for some Joan of Arc buff related videos that I thought were pretty insightful.